I took like this, I didn't know exactly where we were, and I turned, and then I had to take this like loop. Welcome to Driving Change, where we go for a ride with leading technology executives and dig deep into their beliefs, habits, routines, and influences. Today we take a ride with Bala, CTO of Best Buy, and talk about the role of the CTO, e-commerce to digital, taking risk, customer experience, and building trust. Hey, how's it going?
Very good. How are you?
Good. Good to see you.
It's a beautiful day.
Yeah, it is. We got lucky. So the game plan is we're going to talk a little bit, and then we're going to go to 5 Watts
Okay.
coffee shop. Let's start from how did you get into technology?
I started my undergrad in engineering. So it was funny because it was actually a pure chance because my initial plan was to be a doctor.
Okay.
And then, when you go into like 11th and 12th, you have to go and cut your freshman, sophomore, and senior year, you have to actually do dissection.
Oh.
And I think I actually started to faint when I saw like I have to cut and they were actually making fun of me. And I said, you know what, maybe dissection is not something I can do. If I can't even see the sight of blood, I think working with circuits is much easier rather than as human bodies.
So currently you're the Chief Technology Officer at Best Buy.
That's correct, yes.
And Best Buy has a CIO, and then
That's
also
correct.
you're
Yeah,
the CTO. So
correct.
what's the division? What's the split? How's that work?
I primarily focus on digital, all things digital.
Okay.
So I work with all the digital technologies.
Yep.
I have development also under me.
Okay.
And architecture, operations. So at this time, what we did is when we looked at how can we actually move faster, we are running in 2 different paces. Digital right now is running at a faster pace so that we can actually catch up and compete in a very different arena right now. So that's why we actually have it. And as you think about, there's a lot of discussions about do you do integrated business capabilities or not. And we actually are experimenting with an integrated business capability where digital, I sit within the e-commerce portfolio, digital portfolio, so I'm very close to the business. And as you think about driving from a product technology perspective, product management, being closer to the business makes a lot more sense so we can actually go faster.
Absolutely.
And make the changes we need to go make.
Yeah. Getting to know you, I've always felt like you're more of an offensive player than a defensive player.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the people that I've interviewed, over time, CTOs are more the offensive, looking ahead, looking forward, trying to figure things out.
Yeah.
Where CIOs sometimes are seen as defensive, holding the fort down.
Yeah.
I do think it's interesting though that more and more CIOs are integrating further into the business, playing more of that integrated business executive role too.
Right.
But it is interesting when you see 2 companies that are, or you see a company that's split between CIO and CTO.
And it's purely a need for the business. I think I look at organizational structures, job responsibilities, all like what is needed at the time for the company to move forward. So these are all set, it's not set in stone, it's like a progress during the time what we do. And that's essentially what we're doing. My CIO and I, we have a phenomenal relationship, and she and I are pretty close, and she's actually been, even yesterday we had a great conversation about how do we actually start to look at innovation, and she's very much focused on innovation too at this time. In fact, she and I talked about how can we, now that some of the functions of what she and I came here for from a turnaround perspective, it's kind of behind us. How do we actually start to now grow the business, and how can we enable technology, whether it's in digital, in physical, or back office, whatever it needs to be, how can we work together to actually make it successful?
In the CTO role, what makes a great CTO versus someone that's just competent in the role?
I think that's I'm not sure if I can answer that very well, but I will try. How about that?
Yeah.
So I think to me, what I've seen so far, and this is just from my personal experience,
Sure.
I think there's a challenge between the role of a CTO sometimes get too boxed by people saying you're a visionary, you look ahead.
Yep.
Or some other CTOs is like, you are essentially managing the technical portion of it. You kind of are actually in a much more of a geekier role, about focused much more in like just managing the technology, managing the infrastructure, and working on that environment. I think for a successful CTO from my side, you have to be somebody who's able to help maximize the benefits of the business today. So you have to have one leg today, but also be able to look outside and be able to push the boundaries of business can expand for tomorrow. So how do you actually build a foundation for business, or the runway, however you want to call it, so business can take off and go faster for the future? So a good CTO or a great CTO in my mind should be able to translate the needs of technology or the value of technology into something which is concrete for the business today, but also be able to set the stage for tomorrow.
What advice have you received? That's one of those things that you kind of always go back to, something memorable that you always go back to that helps you in the role that you do.
I mean, there are a couple of them, but one good thing I received, which I actually use today very well, is when you're young in your career, you always want to be like right. So what happened was, by nature, what it means is that it's physically not possible, or even mathematically, it is not possible to be 100% right all the time. So one of the people who was mentoring me at the time basically told me, like, look, even the best ball players, and I was actually in MBA class at the time, and he was a cohort with me on MBA, and he said, like, look at all the averages, like the best people, everybody else, the best free throw shooter in NBA is a 6.68, 0.668, 68%. And then the other, they were talking about MLB and saying, hey, if you're at like 60, if you can actually have a home run average above 50, you're actually in like one of the top ones in MLB. So that was probably the most pivotal advice I got, because it allowed me to say, you know what, it's okay to fail. And I know it's a cliche, a lot of people say, but there's a lot of things in my life where I've actually taken risks with the fact that it's okay to fail, because we can always come back up. And that has always led to better things. It's not saying that every single decision I've made I've not failed. I've actually failed. But what I've been able to do is use that as a learning experience. It's hurtful during that time, so I'm not going to make any bones about it. But it is absolutely a great learning experience, because you actually learn a lot about what you're truly made of, and what decisions you can actually make for the company beyond that.
When you look at your career, and you were at T-Mobile before.
That's correct.
Best Buy. Looking at your career, what was one of those challenging times, and the aha that came out of it, that kind of learning that came out of it?
I think the one which is nearest to me, if I can talk about Best Buy, is 2 holidays back, we actually had an outage in our website during the holiday, which is like the most important time. You cannot have an outage. And I think one of the aha moment for me was, first, it was a very hard decision for me to make, to take the site down, because we were seeing significant increase in traffic, and we were starting to see our databases start to have a lot of trouble keeping up with it. Threads were starting to hang. So either I had two decisions to make. One is shut the traffic, bring it down, get it back up and clean it and get it to the next level, or run with it and roll the dice and actually take a very hard hit, which means which takes like several hours to actually recover from that outage. And so I made a decision to actually shut it down. I can pull it out, and it was a very hard decision to make. It is right in there. Obviously, the moment we do it, it actually goes into the press. People actually knew about it. Everybody started writing it up. But one thing I noticed, there are two things I noticed. One is my team started to gel, and we actually became much more tighter as a unit, and we wanted to bring it up. People who are not even involved in it, everybody said, how can I help? Nobody started to splinter as a team. Nobody started to run away and saying, this is not my fault. Nobody was pointing fingers. Everybody actually started to come together, and that was something magical about how the team dynamic started to work, because you had two options. Either everybody starts to point fingers and freeze, or everybody roll up the sleeves and work to get it up and running. And every single person actually came together and did it. The other one was the organization is incredibly supportive of the decision you make, because it's a very hard decision.
Yep.
And they let me make it, and they were actually behind me. So that was a really good learning experience, that it's okay to fail even at the grand stage, because there is trust that you can actually bring it back up again. There's trust in you. And I think that's a really good learning exercise, because
The trust is the most important aspect of
and,
it, right?
And you yes, and then also when you get it, now you have even more, especially in a role as a CTO, you have to essentially keep it and earn it and be continuous. The thing is, you have to be able to take accountability, keep accountability, and actually show people that you can do it. That becomes very important.
For you, as a CTO, what are some of the characteristics of the people that work best with you? I spend all my time hiring tech management, tech leaders for other companies, and it's surprising how it can be different from leader to leader what they really look for. So for you, what are the characteristics that are most important in the people that you have?
So in a product management, so I have product management too, because in digital, like all the product manager reports into me.
Yep.
So I look for two things in a product manager. I look for insatiable curiosity, right? The ability to be a perpetual beginner. Like, what happens is sometimes it's like you get the lethargy of experience, because if you have a bug in your site, you kind of get used to it, and basically that stops. You stop, looking at it anymore, because you're kind of used to it. We do it all the time. In fact, that's how we cope with life a lot.
Yep.
But like, how do you actually have the perpetual beginner philosophy in your mind, so that you always think like, what would the first-time customer look at? So that curiosity is very important for me. The other one is, like, a lot of things which I would like to do is, like, are they willing to take risks, but do it in a very smart way, like really understanding where they stand, what perspectives they actually bring in. Look outside, have the humility to know that there are people much smarter than us outside, and be able to leverage what's being done outside to benefit our customers. The last one, of course, is that have a relentless focus on the customer experience. I know it's a cliche, but I truly mean it, because if you focus on the customer experience, I believe, this is my personal opinion, that revenue is a byproduct of superior customer experience.
Sunny.
That was the first time I went to 5 Watt. Actually, the espresso is really good.
It's really good, yeah.
It's really good.
It's a good bean too. I would definitely come here again.
Yeah. I
5
actually, I'm usually pretty organized about having our coffee shops lined up for the show, but that was a phone call on the way to Best Buy today.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And they're gracious enough to look online and look at the show and go, yeah, you guys can show up.
Nice.
Let's change gears.
Yeah.
Looking back at your career, what advice would you give your 25-year-old self?
Take risks a lot earlier.
Okay.
And not be afraid of making a mistake.
Were you less risk tolerant earlier on in your career?
Yeah, I think I was definitely a little bit more risk averse than what I am right now.
Yeah.
And if I think about my 25-year-old self, I was also coming out of school pretty broke. So trying to the options of decision modeling perspective, the probability of actually being completely broke was pretty high at the time.
Yeah.
So I was a little bit nervous about it. So I think that's the first thing I would do. Is
so risk would be like taking jobs that maybe weren't as...
And there was a lot of opportunity. I was in Seattle at the time, had a lot of opportunities to go to a startup. And be able to work there, and a lot of unknowns, but there was just a lot of interest. I turned them down mainly because I wasn't sure if they will go past like round B funding or so. So I'm like, but those things are all highly successful. So that's one of the things I would actually tell myself.
Okay.
Like, don't worry about. You can make it. So just have the confidence in yourself and also the environment. You can actually do well.
kind of a flip question. What are some of the things that you think you did well earlier on in your career that kind of led you and propelled you to your current role as CTO of Best Buy?
I didn't have a preconceived notion of where I need to go.
Okay.
And I looked at opportunities, and I looked at a lot of things as learning experience. Like my graduate was on optical computing, and my professor and I did work on optical computers. And then I switched over to wireless technology. And I didn't have, I knew I'm from an electrical engineering background, so I know DSPs, digital signal processing, and all those background. But, building cell towers and actually looking at how switch work was completely new to me, and I took it on. And so I think the ability for me to be able to take on new roles and not be afraid as I got mature in my career to take on new roles and not be afraid of actually taking the new chances, not being afraid of taking a risk, that's probably one of the biggest contributors to my success.
Okay.
Still a work in progress, as I say. So.
Where do you get your information to stay on top of the things that you're doing? Is books, podcasts, blogs?
All of the above. Talk to people like yourself. Podcasts, absolutely. Books. My team. We use HipChat quite a bit.
Yep.
So
you use what?
HipChat, which is an Atlassian.
What is that?
It's like Link. It's our internal IM. It's an Atlassian tool which we use. And so that's where we actually connect a lot of data which comes in. I get a lot of unsolicited emails, which I actually read some white papers and see what's actually going on. Blogs, High Scalability Computing is a good blog I read.
Which blog is that?
It's called highscalability.com.
Okay.
So it's a good blog on high scalable computing. So I actually read that. Stack Overflow, because I love to code even now, so I look at some of Stack Overflow work. So just it's and then talking to a lot of my peers. A lot of CTOs, they all go through, and the CIOs, they go through a lot of things now, and they look at what they do. I think what's interesting is that there is so much information out there right now, Jeff, that it's what you do with the information is where the differentiation is. It's not about not about the fact that you don't have information. You have a lot of information. What do you really do with it? That makes the difference now.
Yeah. Best Buy as an organization within technology. I saw that you're part of Minnesota High Tech Association.
Yeah.
Are there other organizations like that you're part of?
We are with the OpenStack community.
Okay.
We use a lot of OpenStack, so our teams, we actually work closely with the OpenStack community. We host the mini bar with Minneapolis every single year, so that happens, and it just happened last month.
All right.
So we've been actually part of it. In Seattle, we are actually doing a lot of meetups in various aspects, so we do that. It's not top down. I like to encourage my teams to connect and meet with the relevant things for them, rather than it being like, Bala wants you to go here.
Yeah.
I say, if they actually want to go and do an OpenStack community, go do it. So it's much more decentralized rather than something there.
Yep.
We're also very much involved in Grace Hopper, and also we work a lot with. My passion is, like I told you, about diversity. So I'd like to bring more gender diversity within engineering. So we work with the Grace Hopper conference. We attended for the last 2 years. I've been going last year. I'm going to go this year too.
Okay.
And we also
Grace Hopper is Women in Technology.
The Women in Technology.
Yep.
We work on that, and so we support a lot of local women's organization focused on technology. So that's one area I'm personally passionate about.
Yeah. Can you tell me about work-life, personal balance? How do you balance that? You said that you do probably work a little bit more than you'd probably prescribe other people.
Yeah.
And you have a family.
Yeah, I do. I have 2 kids.
So how do you? What's your balance, and how do you make that work?
I don't know. I think this is a question for my wife, and she'll say I have no work-life balance.
And that's okay, right?
It is.
That's the truth.
Yeah, I think. Look, the reality is, we are living in such a connected age, right? For me to do this work with you, I'm actually taking time off work to actually do this with you. So, and if I have to go to my son's baseball game, I have to leave early today.
Yep.
I probably have to do it. which means that at night when we have something going on in production issue, I have to hop on my computer to see it.
Yep.
So it's a fine line between what is work, how do you actually manage it. I think one thing I'm trying to do, and I'm by no means there, is like when I'm at home, I want to be at least focused on certain things.
Yep.
I am not very good at it. My wife will absolutely attest to that one. But
she's going to have a lot of comments
yes,
on
exactly.
this video.
Absolutely. I think what I'm hoping to do is like, there are times when we have something like no phones, no distractions.
Yep.
Could we get to the point where we are really focused on being at home?
Yep. Being present.
And being present at the time, be here now. So
Yep.
that's one of the things I'm trying to do. Clearly not there, but we'll get there. The other one is, I also have operations. So it is a 24/7 job. It's just what it is. So I try to actually do the best I can, hoping that I'm able to juggle all the balls. So from an advice perspective, I don't have a lot. I think my thing is do what's right for you. There's no prescribed thing for anybody. I think as long as you feel like you have a sense of balance with your significant other and your family and your personal needs, it's gonna, whatever works for you, works for you.
So I have one last question for you, and the question is you asking a question, really. So what question would you like to hear other tech leaders, be CTOs or CIOs or VPs of product? What question would you like to hear them answer?
Yeah, for me, I'd love to get some perspectives on how do they manage the need for maximizing the business benefits today versus investing in the future, and how do they actually find the fine line, because it's different for different companies and different maturity in different industries. But how do they actually do that? What are the things they actually use in their head, or as they actually lay out a strategy or a vision for where they want to take their organization? How do they actually do the difference between how do you get existing optimization done to your work today versus investing in innovation, because innovation has a pretty high risk profile to it.
Yep.
How do you actually balance both of them? That'll be interesting to know.
Yeah, I think we'll probably hear a lot of different answers on that.
Yes, yeah. And it's fascinating because I love to read more about it, because we always, when you get into TED or big conversations, you always know about the successful people who taken the risk in being successful. There's a lot of people who failed, and I'm fascinated about understanding who's actually failed.
Yeah.
And how did it actually happen? So really understanding that will be pretty cool to know.
Yeah.
So,
great question.
yeah.
Hey, well, thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Hey, this is Jeff Martin again. If you go to leadbychange.com, you can see this show and other shows. If you subscribe, you can get early access to new shows and also exclusive content. Thanks for watching.